This little device is a handheld light meter. No, it's not an old radio, and yes, I do know it looks a little old school, but bear with me. And you might be wondering, why even use one when modern cameras have a meter built in? The short answer is that they work very differently. And once you understand how this works, you'll start getting more consistent and more accurate exposures. Back in the film days, cameras didn't have a built-in light meter. So if you wanted a properly exposed photo, you actually needed one of this, especially with film. Shooting without a light meter was basically impossible. Now, whether you're shooting film or digital, exposure still comes down to the same three things: your shutter speed, your aperture, and your ISO. What a light meter does is helps you balance those three. You give it your ISO and your aperture, you take a reading, and it tells you the shutter speed you should use for the light in your scene. So here's the real reason why people still use a handheld light meter today. Your camera measures the light that's reflecting off your subject, and that can be all over the place depending on how your subject looks like. White shirt? Your camera thinks the scene is brighter than it actually is. Black shirt? Now your camera thinks the scene is too dark. A handheld meter doesn't care about any of that. It measures the light that's actually hitting your subject. This is what we call incident light. And because you're measuring the light at the source, the reading is more accurate. It doesn't change based on clothing or skin tone or how reflective our subject is. This is where consistency comes from. And once you start getting consistent exposures, everything else becomes easier. Your workflow, your grading, your decision-making on set. Now, all of this works great when you can actually walk to your subject and take a reading. But what if you can't? That's when the spot attachment comes in. On this meter, it's a 5-degree viewfinder that lets you take a precise reading from a distance. You look through it, you point it at the exact part of the scene where you want to measure, and it gives you the exposure for that specific spot. This is especially useful for things like architecture, landscapes, or street photography. Basically, any situation where you need to move fast or the subject is way too far to physically reach. For a long time, I relied only on the camera's meter. And to be honest, it worked most of the time. But once I started using a handheld light meter, like the one that I always carry, I realized how much freedom it gives me on set. I'm not second-guessing my exposure, I'm not adjusting after every shot, I'm not wondering if the light is too bright or too dim. I take one reading, I trust it, and I can focus on actually creating the image instead of chasing the right settings. That's exactly why I still use a light meter on every shoot. It removes the guesswork and it keeps my exposure consistent no matter what I'm working on. So yeah, that's how the light meter works in real-world shooting. If you're curious about other tools or you want me to cover something specific, let me know down in the comments below. And as always, I'll see you in the next video.